All right, everybody, welcome to what I'm going to call a special edition of today's YouTube video. And I'm going to say why it's a special edition. Because while my idea was always write the blog post and post it and then do a video the same day, get everything together, it hasn't worked out that way because of my scheduling. I have posted before. I really fell behind with the videos because of my school schedule and teaching. So there was like a 2 month period there where I don't think I did any videos, as a matter of fact. And so I'm literally 3, 4 months behind on my videos. So the good news is that I get to update the blog post and then, I can add the video. And so, eventually I'll catch up. I hope so. But today I did this because I felt there was just no way I was going to let this, 2 or 3 months go by on this issue. And today's topic is going to be about Alex Jones, the conspiracy theorist, what is it, Infowars and the Alex TV and radio show, and his bankruptcy case. And the reason I'm going to talk about it is because there's a twist. It's not just now a regular bankruptcy case. And so I'm going to dig deep on this one. It's probably going to be even longer than my most 5 to 10 minute videos. Um, because I think there's another angle here that we need to look at and understand what maybe Alex Jones is up to. So, what's going on with this case is this all comes from the victims of the Sandy Hook elementary school shootings. Unfortunately, he's been posting for years now and arguing that none of this was true. That this is crisis actors. The people you see there, they're at other events. I don't know if he said that about the Parkland shooting. And Parkland was in Broward County, close to where I used to live and when I was in Miami-Dade. And so this crisis actors nonsense, which I've heard from like people that I knew and kind of knew personally. I deleted them off of Facebook when I saw that. It's just nonsense. Think about what you're saying. You're saying that the event didn't happen, that it's all fake, and that the people that were there crying and all that, that's all fake. They go to a next location, to another school shooting, to do that again there, and another mass shooting. Think about the logic in that. You're saying that the police arrests are fake, the reports, the trials, the media coverage, all of that is fake, right? It is beyond ridiculous to believe that. Now you understand why the cover of this, the thumbnail for YouTube is some guy with a tin hat. I'm thinking maybe I should have put on a tin hat and kept it on the whole time. But my wife said, you wasted a tin hat on that. I could have used it for something else. So maybe it's for the better. But you see the point of these conspiracy theories. Now, the problem is we tend to just look at the conspiracy theory and say, whatever, just gibberish. Let's not pay attention to it. But there's people attached to this. This affects people's lives. And I have read the stories on, especially with Sandy Hook, which is like the more well-known one. Not, in a bad sense, but more that he's been pushing it is what I'm trying to say. One of them had to relocate and is living in a gated community, somewhat reclusive, because these people have bumped into followers of Alex Jones and his Infowars and what he's peddling. And they've argued with these people, and it's not true. You're a crisis actor and everything else. Now, let's look at the human side of this. Your child was massacred at a school shooting. Put that in perspective, how difficult that is to deal with emotionally, I mean, honestly, there's just no way for anybody to fathom that unless they've been in that situation. So that's hard enough to deal with in one lifetime. Now imagine you're doing groceries and someone approaches you with this garbage, this crap, that you're a crisis actor and everything else. You're reliving this trauma every single day. People don't deserve this. But that's there's a lot of good with the internet. I think what I do is good. I push understanding of finances and bankruptcy and all that so we can, all walk down this path of financial freedom. But there's always going to be that one guy, right? And that is just sad. There's really no other way of saying it. I cannot imagine um, constantly looking over my shoulder, concerned that someone is actually, is that person approaching me? Are they a follower? Are they going to hurt me? Are they going to injure me? Are they going to say something where I now have to go home and cry and deal with this all over again? So put that in perspective and think of the damage that Alex Jones has done to these families and all these other people where he's pushed conspiracy theories with. And then you'll understand the lawsuit. Now, the lawsuit was it's two judgments, Connecticut and Texas, was for 1.5 billion total damages is what's been awarded by the juries. Here's the catch: he filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Now, Chapter 11 bankruptcy is like Chapter 13 is the way I like to describe it. Basically, it's a payment plan. It's a reorganization, is what we like to call it in this business. And you just, get your debts up to date. You pay off the creditors, whatever you can afford, and you move on. When we hear Chapter 11, we hear it in reference to businesses. Not so much individuals, but typically it's high wealth individuals like movie stars that we might hear about it. Alex Jones is a high wealth individual. According to bankruptcy filings, his net worth is about $9 million. Now, the problem is filing for bankruptcy with this judgment. Can you wipe out a judgment in bankruptcy? Sure, we do it all the time, right? If I sue you for whatever reason, to say I represent a credit card company, you can turn around bankruptcy, wipe out that judgment. Can I get in a car accident with you and I had no insurance and you sue me? Can I file for bankruptcy? Sure, because I'm going to lose my license until I pay that back. So bankruptcy would help me with that. Can I file for bankruptcy in a car accident with you and not qualify for bankruptcy, or the bankruptcy portion gets denied when it comes to the lawsuit? Yes, and that's the key. If I come and I hit you from behind, that's a simple negligence case, right? I was texting, whatever, I was doing something I wasn't supposed to, I had a car accident, simple negligence type case that can get wiped out in bankruptcy. But what if I hit you on purpose? I don't like you. I saw you. I decide I'm just going to smash into your car today. That's willful and malicious. There's intent there. That's not going to be covered in bankruptcy. That's what's happening with this lawsuit. The judges basically said this lawsuit is willful and malicious. Especially, by the way, Alex Jones had testified that Sandy Hook was real. So what he pushes on on his show, that's one thing. What he said in court is another. And so, he said he regretted that and everything else. If he had crocodile tears, it wouldn't surprise me. But there you go. He filed bankruptcy for creditors because the Sandy Hook victims who filed this lawsuit, they are creditors in the name of the law. Now, with that filing, if this is willful and malicious, bankruptcy won't wipe that out. That was actually one of my first blog posts, maybe the number 2 or 3. That was with rapper G Herbo, that was caught in a criminal case using fraudulent credit cards. Stuff like that's not going to get wiped out in bankruptcy. So if I have criminal fines and penalties and all that issued by the court, that's not going to get wiped out in bankruptcy. And a tort, civil laws, a tort is basically civil law, a lawsuit like this one related to willful and malicious conduct, that's not going to be wiped out in bankruptcy either. So, logically speaking, why stay in Chapter 11 bankruptcy all this time if at the end of the day you're not going to wipe out this $1.5 billion judgment that realistically he can't afford to pay? He makes good money. I think I don't know if it was 3.4 or 4.3, but in April it was reported that that's how much his website makes. Now he makes a lot of money from the supplements that he pushes and whatever else stuff he sells on that website. So it does generate money. I mean, that's literally $40 million a year. I read at some point Infowars was getting more hits than top media networks. Put that in perspective. It explains why there's so many people misinformed. But if you can't wipe out this judgment with these creditors, Sandy Hook again, they're creditors, they're treated like creditors, like Bank of America is or Chase Bank. There is no point in moving forward with Chapter 11. It's not going to accomplish the ultimate goal, which is to get rid of this 1.5 million. Now, they haven't reached a settlement. Initially, they asked for 85 million to settle. He counteroffered. I read 5 million a year for 10 years. So now, last week, there seems no settlement. He's converting to Chapter 7. Now, coincidentally, my last video focused on that. It was a question from a reader who filed Chapter 7 to protect your car. And basically, Chapter 7 is not going to protect your car. You fell behind on payments. You have to do a Chapter 13 for that. So the answer was simple. You just convert. You can convert for millions of reasons, and it happens all the time. You convert from a 7 to a 13 or from 13 to 7. I'll do a blog post later on why convert from 13 to 7, because it's an interesting way to get out of bankruptcy and pay off debt quicker. But in this case, he converted to Chapter 7. Step back. I just said he's a high wealth individual. Chapter 7 is a liquidation. Whatever assets are not protected get liquidated and is used to pay off creditors. Now, a typical no asset bankruptcy case, it's no big deal. You file for bankruptcy, you liquidate. Sometimes there's nothing to liquidate, and we're done. But if you can't wipe out this lawsuit with the bankruptcy, what's the point of then of doing Chapter 7 and converting? That's where no one, I think, is focusing on, and this is where I think is the key act. This is what I think the tactic is. Chapter 7, and Texas has very generous protections. He's filed in Texas his bankruptcy. Texas has better protections than Florida, and Florida is known as a safe haven for debtors. Florida only protects half an acre of land when you file for bankruptcy, homestead exemption. Texas protects 10 acres within the city. I think Florida, this part I could be wrong, don't quote me, either 5 or 10 acres in a rural area. Maybe it's a lot more than that. I don't know. I've never represented someone in a rural area. But Texas allows 100 acres. Texas allows one car to be fully exempt. Florida only allows up to $5,000 in equity on your car exemption, and $4,000 to $1,000 on your exemptions for personal property, depending on whether depending on whether you own a home or not. And Texas up to 50,000. So anything above that is not protected and gets liquidated. Now, he would own shares or has some sort of a percentage interest in the TV show, obviously, and Infowars and everything else. That's not going to be protected in bankruptcy. So if it's not protected in bankruptcy, what happens? Trustee literally sells it, pays it off, sells it. You and I can jump in and be the highest bidder. Now we own Infowars. That's the way it works. It doesn't matter whether it's Infowars or we're talking a car or a house that's not protected or whatever. Texas also provides an exemption for the home, fully exempt home. You remember, 10 acres or up to 100. I don't know if he lives at his ranch. I keep reading that there's a ranch he owns that's worth 2.8 million. So assuming that's where he lives, that will be protected. But everything else gets wiped out. Now, if they can't get wiped out in bankruptcy, what is the goal here? What is he trying to do? I think what he's trying to do is Alex Jones is trying to become judgment proof. And this is what I mean by that. A lot of times I have clients that come to me, they're elderly, whatever age, they only live off Social Security and have no assets. They got sued for a credit card, maybe a spouse died. And so with the spouse passing, there's less income coming in. And you use your credit cards, etc. There's a term we call the graying of America. Talk about graying. This has gotten worse over the last couple of months. But the graying of America, if your Social Security is protected. So if you have no assets, you are judgment proof. Now, that doesn't mean I can't sue you. I could sue you and get a judgment. I just can't collect on the judgment. Is that forever? No, because the example I use in the blog is if you win the lotto, that's not protected. I can come back and say I have a judgment from 10 years ago. Let me go ahead and collect. Maybe an inheritance, whatever it might be. So a lot of times creditors do move forward anyway, just in case things happen. You never know, but they can't move forward and collect. So if Jones becomes judgment proof, then they can't collect. The victims of Sandy Hook, they won't be able to collect from him. Why is he judgment proof? Again, look at the exemptions in Texas. If a home is fully exempt and one car, then at least you own a home, even though it's worth millions of dollars. It's protected in bankruptcy in that state. Every state is different. Some states, I don't remember Utah. I want to say something around 40,000. Utah, which such the property values are so high that 40,000 is really not a high exemption. It's somewhere around there. I know Georgia's 21,500. Again, not a lot. And I think Kentucky's 5,000. We have $5,000 equity in our car. And yet in Kentucky, that's all your home is protected. So again, every state is different. Always know about the exemptions in your state. But with that in mind now, what can he do to be judgment proof? Well, you can't really take away his home. Now, could you put a lien on his home? Yes, any creditor can. And then the day you sell that home, that creditor, that lien has to get paid. Or if you pass away, your case goes through probate and your family's trying to take ownership of the home because you passed away. Creditors can show up at probate too. I only did one probate case. I did it for a client of mine as a favor. I had to be supervised by another lawyer because I never did probate. But one creditor showed up, and it was FP&L. For those of you in Florida, you know what I'm talking about, Florida Power and Light. They showed up for an $80 claim. I asked the lawyer, parking's $10, getting over here is another $10. I don't understand this, but that's FP&L. I'll tell you FP&L horror stories some other day. But creditors can come after you even in death. There's really no, I think student loans is pretty much kind of the only exception. But they are allowed to collect on what you owe. So that's why it's important to always protect your assets. A will is not going to, a will just transfers property upon death. So do talk to lawyers who deal with elderly law and probate law to better understand how to protect yourself with this stuff. But going back to Alex Jones, if he's judgment proof, then you can't collect because again the home is protected until he passes away or sells the home if there's any liens. So what about his income? Can you garnish his income? Sure. Creditors can garnish your wages and freeze your bank accounts, and that's some of the tools that they use. So I don't know what the garnishment percentage is in Texas. Florida, I think, is 25%. Yeah, Florida is 25%. Most states, 15 to 25%. They'll fall somewhere in that range. So can now can now very loud truck. Wow, sorry about that. Can now his wages be garnished? Yes and no. If he now sells his stake in, you know, his shares, whatever, and Infowars and everything else, he could still work for the company, right? Whoever buys him out, maybe even the current owners come in, buy him out, and say, by the way, you're the face of the show. We want you to be back on the show and continue to do your thing. They can hire him back, so then his wages can be garnished, except if they now start paying him as a 1099 employee. If he's a 1099 employee, his wages cannot be garnished. So, in my theory, because it makes no sense to liquidate your assets, because even if he liquidates his assets, he's still not going to pay off the full 1.5 billion unless they reach in a deal that they say this is enough and we're happy, we're good. But if you owe $500,000 and you liquidate $250,000, there's still $250,000 that's owed. Here it's going to be, even if it's 500 million, which he's not, he's going to still owe more than 1 billion to the victims of the Sandy Hook on these lawsuits in Connecticut and Texas. So the only way he can get out of this would be liquidate, get rid of everything, right? And there have been accusations in the past that he was shuffling money around to make it harder to trace. I don't know if those offshore accounts or not, but that accusation I did read about at one point. But if he gets rid of all his assets and he keeps the assets that are protected by law, then he's exempt. So the only issue is how does he get paid? A 1099 would fix that problem. If he gets a 1099, can get garnished and continues to pay down his mortgage, in a sense, he got away with this stuff. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, because I haven't seen anybody really reporting that. The media is just saying he's possibly converting. The judge has to approve the conversion. You just don't go from any chapter and refile another petition. You're done. No, you have to file a motion to convert. You got to get it approved. And then if there's assets to liquidate, then the bankruptcy trustee comes in, gets those assets. I don't care whatever the assets are, turns around, sells them at an auction, gets the money, and starts paying off every creditor. So we'll see where this goes. But when I saw this, as a bankruptcy lawyer, the first thing I thought is convert to Chapter 7 on debts that can't even be wiped out in bankruptcy. There's another angle to this. And I'm saying right now, I think that's the angle. The angle is, let me protect my homestead. At least I got some sort of financial security there. Obviously not move out of Texas. If he moves out of Texas, then he'll lose those protections. And then turn around and become a 1099 employee for Infowars and whatever, the Freedom. I keep calling it Freedom, whatever. I don't know. I guess I should have read that part a little bit better. But whatever company that falls under, that's the one that filed for bankruptcy. That might be his move, to try to protect himself financially. And again, 1099 employees cannot have their wages garnished. So if something like that happens and it turns out that I'm right on this, because that is literally the only angle I could see on this, then of course I'll come back and I'll post an update. I will get the blog post that I wrote earlier today on this issue. I'll post it down below in the comment section. And of course, if you have any questions or comments, post it down below, and I'll be more than happy to respond to you. And of course, if you like what you see today, feel free to subscribe to my channel and follow my blog. I do talk about newsworthy events. My topics tend to be really about how to help you out financially. But if there's something newsworthy, especially I think something we can all benefit from, I will talk about that. So I have a couple blog posts on Rudy Giuliani and the exemption issues. Talking again about the Florida homestead and him trying to say that his main residency is Florida. Those are all things we can learn from. So I do learn, that's how I teach my classes. By the way, if I can get some information that's out there and apply to my courses, so we aren't focusing on all these legal concepts and theories, I will, because I think it makes it easier to understand the topics. All right. So I'm done for today. But this was my special edition. So thank you for coming. And again, I'll see you at the next video. And check out my blog, which I'll post here along with the link to this article about Alex Jones. All right. So take care, everybody. Today is Monday, and have a good rest of your week. Bye bye.